Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next hour. As part of a peace push to end conflict, US-Ukraine hold talks on mineral deal, while Zelensky calls for work on military deployment. US and Iran to begin critical nuclear talks as Trump threatens war, while Iran ready to give it a genuine chance for diplomacy. Amid the global trade war, Taiwan, one of the first to talk tariffs with US, two sides exchange views on reciprocal tariffs. In an ongoing counter-terror operation in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar, two more terrorists neutralized, toll mounts to 3. US and Ukrainian officials held tense talks on a proposal that would grant the US access to Ukraine's significant mineral wealth, including rare earth minerals like lithium, titanium and zirconium. These minerals are crucial for high-tech products, and Ukraine has deposits of 20 critical raw materials worth several $1 trillion. The US wants access to Ukraine's mineral deposits and require Kiev to place in a joint investment fund all income from the exploitation of natural resources by Ukrainian state and private firms. Though the proposed deal doesn't include US security guarantees for Ukraine's fight against Russia. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky calls on allies to make progress on a possible military deployment that could act as a deterrent against future Russian attacks after a halt in fighting.
You know that Ukraine has a shortage of air defense systems. You know that Patriot systems can effectively protect against ballistic threats. You also know that we are forced to move the systems we have around the country to give at least temporary protection to different cities. And you know what happens when even one system goes out of service. It means lost lives. I thank every leader, every country, everyone present here who's working with us on a new format, a format for a guarantee force, the coalition of the willing, a united force that can be part of the future security guarantees for Ukraine and at least our part of Europe after this war.
And the Ukraine-Russia conflict has reached a pivotal point as Europe intensifies talks on strengthening long-term defense support for Kiev. In Brussels, 50 nations pledged $23 billion in military aid. Meanwhile, US-led diplomacy is gaining momentum with high-stakes peace talks involving Putin and President Trump's representative.
The Ukraine-Russia conflict stands at a critical juncture, with European nations holding strategic talks on optimizing coalition support for Ukraine's long-term defense. Simultaneously, the US is engaging both Russia and Ukraine in high-stakes peace negotiations, aiming to bridge the deep divides. Following a NATO discussion on creating a reassurance force for Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire with Russia on Thursday, Britain and Germany hosted the Ukraine Defense Contract Group meeting on Friday in Brussels, with representatives from 50 countries. They announced a pledge of $23 billion in military aid to Ukraine this year.
This year, already member states have committed over 23 billion. So we are definitely doing more than last year, but we need to do more. So we see the pledges coming every day. We also see that there are steps taken by the member states, which is important that we send this signal that we are behind Ukraine, and this is also what the meeting is about.
According to The Telegraph, Britain is considering deploying troops to Ukraine for up to 5 years. The plan, one of several being discussed by allies, involves a European-led force to deter the Russian army.
And the new pledges of military aid announced today through the UDCG total over 21 billion euros. A record boost in military funding for Ukraine, and we're also surging that support to the frontline fight.
Meanwhile, Kremlin confirmed talks between President Putin and Donald Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff, who is visiting Russia and may also discuss a future Putin-Trump meeting. Earlier, Putin's investment envoy Kirill Dmitriev met Witkoff in St. Petersburg. Amid ongoing diplomatic efforts, Russia's defense ministry on Friday accused Ukraine of launching 5 attacks on its energy infrastructure within 24 hours, violating the US brokered moratorium. Ravindra Chauhan's report for DD India.
All right, we'll go across to DD India. Shubhendu Ghosh is joining us live from the newsroom. Shubhendu, good morning. US and Ukraine reopened talks on contentious mineral deals, and Kiev and Washington have been haggling over a deal. What details do you have?
That's right, Abhishek. Good morning. Yes, 2 important parallel talks are taking place between US representatives and Ukraine, as well as Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's direct envoy. He's visiting St. Petersburg. Held talks with President Putin, the 3rd round of talks. So first, let's talk about the US-Ukraine talks, focusing on the minerals deal. Remember, the minerals deal is seen as an important hedge for the American intervention push for a peace deal in the Russia-Ukraine war. There is, of course, no security guarantee that forms a part of this deal. America wants access to the important rare earth minerals whose deposits are said to be present in rich quantity as far as Ukraine is concerned. There are some inherent complexities to the talks. Some sources inform there is, of course, no breakthrough as yet with the talks that started on Friday, but what may be worrying is that some sources inform that the talks were, in fact, rather tense, and they were taking place in an antagonist atmosphere, almost reminiscent of what happened when President Zelensky had visited the White House, and the differences really played out in the public. So in that sense, it is a challenging road ahead, but the complexity that is part of this deal is also getting compounded by the fact that President Zelensky had flagged it earlier that the US side is constantly revising the tenets of the deal, making it difficult for Ukraine to articulate exactly what it is supposed to pay. A certain, a maximalist approach that President Trump is known for, that I'm going to take everything and I'm going to give nothing in return, is something seen also being reflected in the negotiations. So that is making the deal tricky. A tense set of talks taking place on Friday, no breakthrough. But we'll have to wait and watch where it goes.
Some stricter demands, Shubhendu, you're saying. I mean, is there any change in the latest US proposal? Does it have more tougher demands?
That's right, and that is what the Ukraine side has suggested. In fact, President Zelensky himself has said that what is taking longer for this deal to finalize is that the demands of the United States is changing constantly. Now, in the latest that we're hearing is that US wants more exclusive and privileged access to Ukrainian mineral, rare earth minerals in particular. When I say privilege, what it means is that only United States would have access to those minerals, not even Kiev for its own utilization. Besides that, there has to be a common fund that must be created. That fund must then accumulate all the profits from the selling of rare earth minerals, whether it is Kiev that engages in it or there are private companies. So in that sense, America seeks now a much wider control over not just access to the rare earth minerals, but also the manner in which they might be monetized in the days ahead. That is making it challenging for Ukraine. Ukraine has pushed for this minerals deal, saying that it should be a win-win deal for both the sides. It should also help Ukraine modernize, especially after the brutal war, which is stretched past 3 years, destroying most of the critical infrastructure for Ukraine. So in that sense, the two sides appear to be, at least for now, looking in different directions, and it's particularly difficult for Ukraine because the longer this deal takes time to finalize, longer perhaps it will take for peace to come in the conflict.
Stretched past 3 years. What's the latest on that, Shubhendu, Russia-Ukraine conflict? Trump's envoy met Putin in St. Petersburg, Witkoff's third with Putin this year. Anything productive came out of the meeting? Anything substantial?
About the fighting first, Abhishek, as parallel talks are taking place, barring some restrictions on energy and critical infrastructure, the fighting is on between Ukraine and Russia. Earlier this week, we understand that Russia reclaimed much of the very strategically important Kursk region where Ukraine had made breakthroughs earlier. Not just that, Russia is making important breakthroughs on the border region. The latest is that a border village in the Sumy region of Ukraine, which is the borders between Russia and Ukraine, has been captured by Russia. This is coming in from Russian sources as we speak. Both sides are using drones in a significant manner to launch attacks on each other's infrastructure, tit-for-tat attacks really, their air defense trying to foil as many as possible. And the drones are reaching, mind you, to the capitals, both Kiev as well as Moscow. Russia, in fact, had complained in the latest that Ukraine had attempted to target some of its energy infrastructure, more than 5 to 10 energy infrastructure, which goes against a certain moratorium which is in place, where both Russia and Ukraine had agreed not to target one another's energy or other critical civilian infrastructure. So in that sense, that complexity continues and the fighting is raging on. Talking about Steve Witkoff's, Trump's envoy's visit to St. Petersburg, Russia, yes, it's the third round of meeting. The talks are on. And if we were to believe the Kremlin spokesperson, he says that do not expect some dramatic breakthrough, because the differences that US and Russia have had for the past many years, the relations has touched rock bottom. The only relations perhaps the two countries have is that of sanctions by one over the other. So in that sense, there is a lot that needs to be ironed out. The talks are on. The US side has been saying that there is a positive momentum to the talks. It'll be important to remind ourselves the conditions that Russia had put to accept peace in the ongoing conflict. Number one was that Russia is going to have authority over the captured lands in Ukraine, and Ukraine will have to move its forces out of those lands. Ukraine will never be part of NATO. That understanding has to be confirmed. Also, NATO forces, no boots on the ground, not even in the form of peacekeeping. And finally, Russia, for its own economy to recover and grow, the sanctions, the best, will have to do away with.
Right, and Europe also intensifies talks on strengthening long-term defense support for Kiev. All right, Shumendu, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. Iran and the United States will begin crucial talks on Saturday to reach a new nuclear deal in an effort to ease tensions and avert another conflict in the Middle East. The meeting, to be held in the Gulf Arab nation of Oman, could be the first direct talks between Iranian and American officials in a decade. Though Iran insists they will be indirect, with mediators acting as go-betweens for the two nations, Iran said it was giving high-level nuclear talks with the United States on Saturday a genuine chance after President Donald Trump threatened bombing if discussions failed. President Donald Trump has given Iran a 2-month deadline to accept a deal that would lead to Iran shrinking its nuclear footprint or eliminating its program altogether. Trump said ahead of high-stakes weekend talks over the state's nuclear program that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon.
And I want them not to have a nuclear weapon. I want Iran to be a wonderful, great, happy country. But they can't have a nuclear weapon. And we're negotiating with them on Saturday with the currency of choice. We're always going to be, as long as you have somebody smart. And you know what? If a nation said we're not going to be on the dollar, I would tell you that within about one phone call, they would be back on the dollar. You always have to keep the dollar.
U.S. airstrikes on Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen triggered large-scale protests in Sana'a on Friday as tensions between the United States and the Houthis continue to escalate. Mass protests erupted on Friday in southern Sana'a's 70 Square, where protesters raised the flags of Yemen and Palestine and shouted slogans denouncing the escalated U.S. airstrikes, which have increasingly targeted civilian infrastructure. The confrontation between the Houthis and U.S. forces has intensified in recent weeks. American warplanes have bombed several Houthi-controlled locations, including Sana'a. Meanwhile, the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson has arrived in the Red Sea, joining the USS Harry S. Truman, which was already deployed in the region. In response, the Houthis have launched multiple attacks on U.S. naval assets. And on Friday, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saria said in a statement that the group had carried out new operations targeting hostile forces, including strikes on the USS Harry S. Truman and hitting 2 military sites in the Israeli city of Jaffa with drones. Time now for a very short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Gabon to vote in first presidential election since 2023 coup. Dominican Republic issues official report on a deadly roof collapse that killed 221 people. Experts to continue investigating the structural failure. And lava and smoke emerge from a snowy Mount Etna.
Even small shifts can make a big difference. Whether it's the way we commute, what we eat, or the way we power our lives. What can we do today to ensure a greener and more inclusive tomorrow?
The pollution control starts from the procurement of the fuel. So we go for low sulfur and low ash coal.
First step is towards creating a safe, comfortable and risk-free access trips, which is walking.
There are ways in which you can make journeys smoother, more punctual, more reliable by improving, say, signalling, giving bus priority.
The farmers' organization offers them a standard price. When all the farmers are paid the same, you can really see the impact on their lives.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. President Donald Trump insisted on Friday that his tariff policy was doing really well despite China hiking levies on US goods to 125% in the spiraling trade war between the world's two biggest economies. Investors dumped US government bonds, the dollar tumbled and stocks seesawed after Beijing's retaliation against Trump deepened concerns on already traumatized global markets. Trump sent financial markets into a tailspin by announcing sweeping import taxes on dozens of trade partners last week, only to abruptly roll them back to 10% on Wednesday for 90 days, while raising levies on goods from China.
I think the markets were solid today. I think people are saying we're in great shape. We're making a lot of money as a country now for the first time in a long time. We were losing billions of dollars a day, and now we're making billions of dollars a day. It's a big difference. And we then brought it down to 10%. And so that made it a little bit less, but I did that because I wanted to be fair to other people, to other countries.
Meanwhile, the White House has said later that Trump remained optimistic about a deal with China and added that 15 other countries have offers on the table during his 90-day pause in their tariffs. Take a listen.
I won't reveal or get ahead of our trade team as these negotiations are obviously ongoing, but I can tell you very good progress has been made. Jameson Greer was on television this morning and I spoke to him, and he confirmed that more than 15 offers are already on the table, which is remarkable in just a mere matter of days. And as I said earlier, we've heard from more than 75 countries around the world.
And Taiwan officials held their first tariff talks with US officials on Friday, with both sides looking forward to further discussion soon. The two sides exchanged views on a video conference on reciprocal tariffs between Taiwan and the United States, non-tariff barriers to trade, and a number of other economic and trade issues, including export controls. While Taiwan, facing tariffs of 32%, complained they were unfair, it moved quickly to lay out proposals, with the United States offering a zero-tariff regime and a greater purchases and investments in the country. On Wednesday, US President Donald Trump said he would temporarily lower the hefty duties he had just imposed on dozens of countries, while further ramping up pressure on China. Taiwan has long sought a free trade deal with the United States, even though the two have no formal diplomatic ties. And global trade war is reshaping the alliances. On Friday, Chinese President Xi Jinping called on the European Union to join hands to maintain global rules and order, while other regional powers too are getting closer to China in view of emerging situation on trade front. On one hand, Trump called European Union very smart. He also said he would love to get a deal with China to end an escalating trade war.
Besides raising fears of a global slowdown, Trump's tariff orders seem to be pushing to reshape global trade dynamics and regional alliances. On Friday, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez was in Beijing, where he held talks with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. The Chinese president urged the EU to join hands with Beijing in defending globalization and maintaining global rules and order. However, Sanchez pushed for a more balanced relationship between Beijing and the EU. Sanchez also suggested that China and the United States needed to hold talks to defuse the situation.
Trade wars do no good, nobody wins. And that's not just probably because I'm sure of it. The world needs the US and China to talk.
As Trump targets China, the European Union and China have also begun negotiations over electric vehicle pricing. According to the European Commission spokesperson, EU and China agreed to look into setting minimum prices of Chinese-made electric vehicles instead of tariffs imposed by the EU last year. The development came after EU Trade Minister Maros Sefcovic spoke with Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao. Besides this conversation, the top EU officials and Chinese leaders are due to hold their next summit, marking 50 years of ties with China in July. Meanwhile, at a cabinet meeting which was open to the press, Trump said he would love to get a deal with China to end an escalating trade war.
What happens with China? We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken advantage of our country for a long period of time. I have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries.
At the same meeting, Trump also spoke about European Union, saying EU is very smart in holding off on tit-for-tat tariffs against the United States.
They've been very tough, but they were very smart. They were ready to announce retaliation, and then they heard about what we did with respect to China and others, but China, and they said, you know, we're going to hold back a little bit. They decided to hold back. I thought they were very smart. Look, the EU is very smart.
Trump's tariff announcement did not go well with European partners too. French Prime Minister François Bayrou termed Trump's tariff announcement as an earthquake. Trump's tariffs are also pushing few Asian countries towards China despite concerns over its expansionist policies. On March 30, 2025, the trade ministers of China, South Korea and Japan held a meeting in Seoul. The three countries agreed to closely cooperate for comprehensive and high-level talks on a South Korea-Japan-China free trade agreement deal to promote regional and global trade.
It is necessary to strengthen the implementation of RCEP, in which all three countries have participated, and to create a framework for expanding trade cooperation among the three countries through Korea-China-Japan FTA negotiations.
While in response to Trump's tariff, China on Friday hit back at the US and announced a decision to raise tariffs on US goods from 84% to 125%. While European Union decided to put countermeasures on US tariffs on hold for 90 days, China adopted a more aggressive approach, slapping counter tariffs without wasting any time. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
In a major policy move, Argentina sealed a $20 billion 48-month extended fund facility deal with the International Monetary Fund on Friday and dismantled key parts of its years-long currency controls and loosened its grip on the peso. The IMF will disburse $12 billion by next Tuesday, while another $2 billion will become available by June. The deal is expected to help Argentina catalyze additional official multilateral and bilateral support and a timely reaccess to international capital markets. Earlier, Argentina's central bank announced it would undo a fixed currency peg from Monday, letting the peso freely fluctuate within a moving band between 1,000 and 1,400 pesos per dollar versus 1,074 at the close on Friday. Argentina will eliminate major parts of the so-called CEPO capital controls that have restricted access to foreign currency, the central bank said in a statement. Now, a day after the U.S. Supreme Court directed Trump administration to facilitate release of man wrongly deported to El Salvador prison, speaking to reporter, President Trump said that he would follow the Supreme Court's ruling. The U.S. Supreme Court directed the Trump administration on Thursday to facilitate the return to the United States of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran man who the government has acknowledged was deported in error to El Salvador. All right, shifting focus, Gabon will hold its first presidential election on Saturday since a 2023 military coup, marking the final phase of the country's political transition and the return to constitutional order. Transitional President Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, who led the coup that ousted former President Ali Bongo Ondimba, is among the 8 candidates contesting the presidency. Bongo was placed in house arrest after the coup but freed a week later due to health concerns. And Nguema resigned from his military post in accordance with Gabon's electoral code to participate in the election. His main challenger is Alain Claude Billy, former Prime Minister under the Bongo administration. Other candidates include former 2023 presidential contenders Axel Stoffini Ebinga and Thierry Yuan Michel Ngoma. The only female candidate, Zenaba Ninga, has advocated for population growth and the promotion of traditional practices such as polygamy. The 14-day electoral campaign concluded on Friday with 8 candidates vying for the presidency. Polling stations are scheduled to open at 600 GMT and close at 1700 GMT, with the result due on Sunday. The winner will serve a 7-year term, renewable once. Early voting in Ecuador commenced on Friday as ballot boxes were dispatched to the elderly and people with disabilities, paving the way for the presidential election slated for April 13th. Ecuador's Vote for Home initiative facilitated the early voting process for 662 voters above the age of 50 with substantial disabilities. The too close to call runoff vote features 37-year-old Daniel Noboa and 47-year-old rival Luisa Gonzalez, who is bidding to become the country's first woman president. The Electoral National Council is set to count all votes post the presidential vote on Sunday. More than 13 million Ecuadorians will vote to choose their leader for the next 4 years on April 13th. Bolivian Minister of Government Eduardo del Castillo announces that police have detained 3 people accused of being part of an attempted military coup in 2024 in Bolivia, and that 2 people are still pending arrest. Castillo added that the investigation has managed to determine that there is a group of 5 people who would have also participated with a vital participation in the failed coup, the Itat, last June. A group of military officers led by the then Army Commander Juan Jose Zuniga burst into the presidential headquarters in La Paz, but hours later he was arrested. The Dominican government issued a report on Friday on the tragic roof collapse at a crowded nightclub earlier this week, which resulted in at least 221 fatalities. A team of national and international experts is set to continue investigating the structural collapse. More than 4,500 emergency workers were deployed to the scene, working for nearly 59 hours after the tragedy to search for survivors, recover bodies and assist the families. Grieving families awaited outside the Forensic Pathology Institute in Santo Domingo to claim the bodies of their loved ones as the institute continues to identify victims and return remains. Mourners gathered for a candlelight vigil to pay tribute to the victims of the roof collapse. Moving on, the National Transportation Safety Board launched a probe into New York City's Hudson River helicopter crash on Friday that killed 6 people, including 3 children. A team of 10 investigators from the board is on site and has started inspecting the wreckage, which has been relocated indoors for detailed examination. A tour helicopter plunged upside down into New York City's Hudson River on Thursday afternoon, killing all 6 people on board, which included a Spanish family with 3 children and the pilot. The Spanish family which was killed were celebrating a birthday. Mount Etna put on a dramatic display on Friday as explosive Strombolian eruptions illuminated its southeast crater and sent plumes of ash soaring into the sky. As per Italy's National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology, volcanic tremor levels, which had been gradually increasing, are now starting to decline, though they still remain elevated. The Volcano Observatory Notice for Aviation said that the aviation alert level is still set at orange, but Catania's Vincenzo Bellini International Airport continues to operate without disruption. Strong winds wreaked havoc in Beijing and parts of northern China on Saturday, causing hundreds of flights to be cancelled, attractions to close and rail lines to be suspended. Beijing earlier issued its first orange alert for strong winds in a decade for this weekend. As of Saturday morning, 413 flights at Beijing's capital international airport had been cancelled. Train services included the airport's express subway line, and some high-speed rail lines have also been suspended. Former Brazil President Jair Bolsonaro was stable and without symptoms after being hospitalized in northeast Brazil with abdominal pain on Friday. Bolsonaro halted a political event in Rio Grande due to pain and was airlifted to a hospital in Natal. The doctor stated that Bolsonaro is hospitalized in stable condition, receiving IV fluids, antibiotics and undergoing further lab tests, adding there was no estimate for when he could be discharged. The United Nations humanitarian body will reduce its staff of about 2,600 people by 20%, its chief said on Friday, citing a wave of brutal cuts including US funding reductions by the Trump administration. The global aid situation has grown dire since President Donald Trump ordered the dismantlement of the US Agency for International Development early this year. Trump administration scrapped 83% of humanitarian programs funded by USAID. The agency had an annual budget of $42.8 billion, representing 42% of total global humanitarian aid. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, which employed nearly 20,000 people at the end of September, also indicated in March that it expects a significant reduction in its workforce due to absence of American funding. Now, a young artist in Vietnam has transformed moss into a truly unique work of art. Considered as one of the pioneers of moss art in Vietnam, the creator Hoang Tuan An brings the lush green moss landscapes to life by his imagination and hard work. The mosses used in the making are entirely preserved, meaning natural or cultivated moss has undergone various treatment processes to halt cellular growth while retaining the appearance, color and elasticity of live moss. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meets Italy's visiting Deputy Prime Minister Antonio Tajani in the national capital. India successfully conducts trials of long-range glide bomb Gaurav. And Hanuman Jayanti today, devotees throng Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Hanuman temples across India offer prayers.
Why is there such an angst over historical characters? The portrayal of India's history.
Our history is still not Bharat's history. The history, which we were taught, which we read, is like the history of the invaders.
If you try to consistently erase the truth and lie about the truth and consistently spread falsehoods, they were so prejudiced and so hell-bent on pushing their own ideological political agenda.
A historian is first Marxist or first communist, and then he behaves like a historian.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of what we have done so far. As part of a peace push to end conflict, US-Ukraine hold talks on mineral deal. while Zelensky calls for work on military deployment. US and Iran to begin critical nuclear talks as Trump threatens war, while Iran ready to give it a genuine chance for diplomacy. Amid the global trade war, Taiwan one of the first to talk tariffs with US. Two sides exchange views on reciprocal tariffs. And in an ongoing counter-terror operation in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar, 2 more terrorists neutralized, toll mounts to 3. So 2 terrorists were killed in an ongoing operation in a snow-bound area of Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar district, the army said on Saturday. 1 terrorist was neutralized the day before. Official sources said the terrorists shot dead were affiliated with Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed outfit and included a top commander, Saifullah, who was active in the Chenab Valley region for the past 1 year. The Army's Jammu-based White Knight Corps in a post on X said in the ongoing operations at Chhatru, Kishtwar, despite bad and inclement weather, 2 more Pakistani terrorists have been eliminated. A large quantity of warlike stores, including 1 AK and 1 M4 rifle, have been recovered. According to the officials, separate operation to track down a group of 3 other terrorists has also been underway in Basantgarh and Ramnagar areas of Udhampur district since Wednesday. All right, for more information on this, DD India's Kalash Nath is joining us live from Kishtwar. Kalash, 2 more terrorists killed in ongoing encounter. Is the encounter still underway? What's more you can tell us?
Yes, Abhishek, you are right. Right now, I am here present in the Chhatru area of district Kishtwar, where search operation is still going on. I will like to inform you that 3 terrorists have been killed here yesterday. Few days ago, Indian Army started search operation in the area after a specific inputs about presence of militant in the area. And the militants tried to escape from the area behind, lefting 7 bags, in which sleeping bag were present and later was recovered by the Indian Army. And Indian Army started search operation in the Naidgam area and Shari, hilly areas of district Kishtwar. And yesterday around 9:30 am, 1 militant killed by the Indian Army, and later 2 more militants killed by the Indian Army, in which Saifullah is man who was killed by the Indian Army, because Saifullah was a foreigner terrorist who belonged to Pakistan and affiliated to Jaish-e-Mohammed, and he was trying to disturb area from last 2 years. And by killing the Saifullah, Indian Army successfully failed the plan of Saifullah and Pakistan to disturb the area.
Also, Kalash Nath, operation continues amid rain. Tell us how many terrorists are still suspected to be hiding around that region?
As I already told you that Indian Army recovered 7 bags, sleeping bags. So it may be there are 7 terrorists present in the area, because 3 terrorists killed by the Indian Army and 7 sleeping bags were recovered from the militants. It may be possible there are 4 militants are also present, and total 7 militants are active in the area.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. President Draupadi Murmu came back home after concluding her 4-day 2-nation state visits to Portugal and Slovakia. During her visit to Slovakia in the second leg of her 2-nation tour, President Murmu met her Slovakian counterpart Peter Pellegrini, Prime Minister Robert Fico and the Speaker of the Parliament, among other dignitaries, and held discussions on a range of issues concerning mutual cooperation. The 2 countries discussed cooperation in the emerging technology sphere, such as space and artificial intelligence, and to explore further opportunities in sectors such as cyber security. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar immediately is visiting Deputy Prime Minister Antonio Tajani in the national capital on Friday. During the meeting, both the leaders reviewed bilateral cooperation and its advancement in trade, investment, IMEC, maritime security, research, technology, education and culture domains. The two leaders also exchanged views on contemporary global developments, including in Europe, Mediterranean and West Asia. Also pledged to continue partnership to develop and evolve, guided by the Joint Strategic Action Plan 2025-29 agreed by the leadership.
Excellency, last year Prime Minister Modi participated in the G7 summit in Puglia, and I remember meeting you at the foreign ministers meeting. You were very kind enough to welcome us to Fiji, and we also remember very warmly Prime Minister Meloni's visit during the G20 summit in 2023. Last year, our Prime Ministers agreed on a joint strategic action plan. Our responsibility is to implement that plan, to take it forward, to make sure that the roadmap for the partnership that it has created is fully and exhaustively explored. Your visit gives us that opportunity.
Now, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is on her official visit to Vienna, Austria. The visit marks a significant step in strengthening the relationship between India and Austria. During her visit, Nirmala Sitharaman met Beat Meni Hrisingha, Minister for European Affairs and Internationalization. The ministers discussed recent developments in India-Austria bilateral relations and underscored commitment to a deeper India-Austria and India-EU relations. Both the leaders explored avenues to deepen cooperation in sectors such as startups, fintech, innovation, artificial intelligence, infrastructure, green technology, renewable energy, eco-friendly urban management solutions, among others. The ministers also discussed global developments of mutual interest. Addressing a joint press conference in Austria's Vienna, India's Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Nirmala Sitharaman highlighted the huge potential of both the countries for strengthening bilateral economic ties. During the conference, Sitharaman emphasized the political will of the Government of India to expand partnership with Austria.
That Prime Minister Modi had emphasized the political will of the Government of India to expand our partnership with Austria. My visit to Vienna is a reaffirmation of the Prime Minister's vision to work towards realizing the fullest possible potential of our bilateral relationship with Austria.
And Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who is on an official visit to Austria, invited Austrian companies to invest in India and highlighted the huge potential for strengthening bilateral economic ties between the two countries. DD India spoke with Hans-Georg Hortnagel, Trade Commissioner and Commercial Councillor, Embassy of Austria, on the significance of a visit.
We have with us the Trade Commissioner and the Commercial Councillor for the Embassy of Austria here in New Delhi. Mr. Hans, thank you for taking our time and speaking to DD India. Our Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is in Austria right now, holding various meetings with her counterparts. Tell us about the significance of this visit and the growing relationship between India and Austria, especially when it comes to trade and technology partnership.
Of course, these visits are very important to us. We celebrated last year 75 years of diplomatic relations with India. So we had the visit of the Indian Prime Minister in Austria. This was very important. It was the first visit of the Prime Minister to Austria after 41 years. We had last year the visit of the Austrian Minister for Economy in India. Now we have the visit of the Indian Finance Minister, and we appreciate that. And we have a very strong relationship with India. It goes back to the times of independence when the steel industry was built up with Austrian technology. So we had 10 years ago export volume of 800 million euros. Now we are exporting 1.3 billion euros from Austria to India, but also our imports from India increased tremendously. Last year we imported goods from India worth 1.5 billion. So that means we have a trade deficit of almost 200 million euros with India. Interestingly, also the import structure from India changed tremendously. 10-15 years ago it was textiles, garments. In the meantime it's high qualified products. And just to give an example, last year we imported smartphones worth 130 millions from India, and 2 years before it was zero. So this shows the new strength. And besides the traditional exports, so Austria always has been a technology provider. Austria is strong In the railway infrastructure, Austria is strong in the automotive supply industry. We have very prestigious projects done in India, like the Setu Tunnel, the bridge link in Mumbai, which was done by Austrian companies involved. So we have been always a reliable provider to the Indian industry. And we see upcoming new forms of cooperation. So we do a lot in the startup. We know India is very strong in this startup ecosystem. We want to connect this with the Austrian. We organized 5-6 trade delegations from India to Austria in the startup sector.
And the Defense Research and Development Organization has successfully conducted the release trials of the long-range glide bomb Gaurav from the Sukhoi aircraft. The release trials, which were conducted for 3 days starting March 8, mark a significant milestone in enhancing India's precision strike capabilities. During the trials, the weapon was integrated to multiple stations in different warhead configurations with land target on island. The trials successfully demonstrated range close to 100 kilometers with pinpoint accuracy. Gaurav is a 1000 kg class glide bomb designed and developed indigenously by Research Center Imarat, Armament Research and Development Establishment and Integrated Test Range, Chandipur. The National Investigation Agency to continue grilling the 26/11 attack key conspirator Tehvoor Rana. As per reports, Rana is reportedly avoiding most questions on the account of not knowing the answers and not presenting satisfactory responses to the NIA investigation. A special NIA court on Friday sent Tehvoor Hussain Rana, the accused in the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, to NIA custody for 18 days and has proceeded with the second day of investigation. He was brought to India from the United States and had arrived in Delhi on Thursday. Rana was first brought before the special NIA court on Thursday evening. Weather updates now. India Met Department has warned against strong surface winds and rain in Delhi NCR on Saturday, as strong dusty winds swept the national capital and the surrounding areas on Friday evening. The dust storms and rains disrupted power supply in the northern part of the region due to branches of trees and other objects that fell on the electrical lines. Heavy thunderstorms also wreaked havoc on flight operations in northern India, causing 15 flights to be delayed and diverted. Air India also released a travel advisory for its passengers due to the same. Now let's take a look at other stories making news. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has partnered with the Maharashtra government to set up the Indian Institute of Creative Technologies in Mumbai. An MOU has been signed between the MIB and Maharashtra government focused on animation, VFX, gaming, comics and extended reality. In a social media post, the Information and Broadcasting Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said that the IICT Institute will be a world-class premium institute for the media and entertainment sector, similar to the IITs and IIMs for technology and management. The Municipal Corporation of Delhi will hold elections for the post of Mayor and Deputy Mayor on April 25. The deadline for filing nominations is April 21st. The term of current Mayor Mahesh Kumar Khechi came to an end on March 31st, following which was announced by the Secretariat's office. On the occasion of Hanuman Jayanti, devotees thronged the Ram Janmabhoomi temple in Ayodhya and other Hanuman temples across India to offer prayers and seek blessings. The day also coincides with Ram Navami, a major Hindu festival celebrating the birth of Lord Ram, further increasing the number of devotees. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. India launches tariff and trade help desk amid global worries. Kolkata Knight Riders cruised to 8-wicket victory over Chennai Super Kings in IPL. And England's all-time highest test wicket taker James Anderson awarded a knighthood for services to cricket. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Business updates now. India on Friday launched a dedicated global tariff and trade help desk to assist traders navigate emerging trade issues amid global uncertainty over US President Donald Trump's tariff measures. The Commerce and Industry Ministry in a statement said that the help desk will look into issues relating to import and export challenges, import surges or dumping, logistics or supply chain challenges, financial or banking issues and regulatory or compliance issues, among others. The ministry added that export-import community may submit information on the Directorate General of Foreign Trade website and submit information relating to their issues. Sports updates now. Will start with Indian Premier League. Lucknow Super Giants will face former champions Gujarat Titans in their Indian Premier League fixture on Saturday, hoping to defeat table toppers Gujarat Titans. Gujarat Titans lead the table with 8 points. They won their previous 4 matches on the trot and look eager to make the knockout phase early. Another win will bring them a step closer to their goal, while Lucknow Super Giants has had a mixed run so far. They have lost 2 of the 5 matches and are currently placed 6th on the points table with 6 points. In another match, Sunrisers Hyderabad are set to host Punjab Kings in the second match of the day in Hyderabad. Punjab Kings have kicked off the season in style, winning 3 out of their first 4 matches with impressive performances. Shreyas Iyer and Priyansh Arya both are in excellent form and can be expected to wreak havoc on the batting-friendly pitch. After enduring 4 consecutive losses, Sunrisers really need to turn things around quickly, otherwise their journey could take a serious hit in the coming week. And Kolkata Knight Riders cruised to an 8-wicket victory over Chennai Super Kings in their Indian Premier League encounter. Chasing a modest 104 runs for victory, Kolkata Knight Riders reached the target in just 10.1 overs, registering their second biggest win in IPL history in terms of balls remaining. While CSK suffered their 5th successive defeat, earlier CSK were restricted to 103 runs, which was their lowest IPL total at home. Sunil Narine took 3 wickets, while Varun Chakravarti and Harshit Rana got 2 each. The win takes KKR to the 3rd spot in the points table, while CSK stay at 9th position. England's all-time highest Test wicket taker James Anderson was awarded a knighthood for services to cricket. Anderson, who made his Test debut in 2003, retired from international duty in July last year after his 188th Test, having taken 704 wickets in a career spanning 21 years. The pacer has a total of 991 international wickets across all formats. England's Cricket Board Chair Richard Thompson said, and I quote, "Congratulations, Sir Jimmy Anderson. This is really well-deserved honour for an England legend who has given so much to our sport," unquote. Tennis now. The Indian women's tennis team defeated Chinese Taipei 2-1 in Pune for its 3rd straight win in Billie Jean King Cup Asia-Oceania Group 1 tie. The victory pushed the hosts to 2nd place on the points table and within touching distance of a coveted playoff spot, where Vaidehi Chaudhary provided India with a perfect start with a 6-2, 5-7, 6-4 win over Lin Fang An. In the second singles match, Srivalli Bhamidipati beat Joanna Garland 6-2, 7-6. Srivalli maintained her perfect record in the tournament, registering her 4th consecutive victory. The 2 top teams from the group will qualify for the playoffs scheduled in November. India will take on Republic of Korea in their 5th and final match of the Cup on Saturday. Now, Kazakhstan became the first team to secure their place in the Billie Jean King Cup finals after a 3-0 win over Colombia. Elena Rybakina and Yulia Putintseva both comfortably won their single matches. Putintseva got the ball rolling again for her country by mowing down Colombian debutant Valentina Arias 6-0, 6-1 in the Premier Women's Team event, while number 10 Rybakina was equally dominant in a clash with Juliana Lizarazo, winning 5 out of 7 break points to secure a 6-1, 6-2 win and book her nation a spot in the knockout stages for the 3rd time. Zarina Diaz and Zibek Kulambayeva won the doubles match to complete the whitewash. And Carlos Alcaraz made it to the Monte Carlo Masters semi-finals with a 4-6, 7-5, 6-3 victory against local favourite Arthur Fils, while defending champion Stefanos Tsitsipas was knocked out. 4-time Grand Slam champion Alcaraz had to sweat but made the most of his opponent's errors in the key moments to set up a semi-final clash against fellow Spaniard Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Lorenzo Musetti recovered from a shaky start to beat 6th seed Tsitsipas 1-6, 6-3, 6-4 after Tsitsipas served a handful of double faults. The Italian will play Australian Alex de Minaur in another semi-final clash. And here we come to the end of this bulletin. Let's take a look at more than 40 artists from the Russian State Ballet who performed the classical ballet masterpiece Swan Lake at the Ho Guam Theatre in Hanoi. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.